distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. A very good morning to all of you. I'm Neha Tiwari, and it's my privilege to welcome you all on behalf of NIIT University to the 13th annual lecture. In NIIT University annual lecture is a long established tradition, and we truly venerate and revere this occasion. We would have been delighted to welcome you all in person at the campus and share and cherish this special moment with you. Nevertheless, it is so very wonderful to see you all gathered online to share this special moment with us. Thank you for making the time to be here. On this occasion, our honorable guest, Mr. K.V. Kamath, shall be speaking on digital India, digital currencies, and economic growth. I have the honor of inviting the honorable chief guest, Mr. K.V. Kamath, former president of the New Development Bank set up by BRICS countries, Mr. Rajendra Singh Pawar, founder NIIT University, Mr. Vijay Thadani, co-founder NIIT University, and Professor Rajesh Khanna, president NIIT University, to grace the occasion. I have the honor of inviting our founder, Mr. Rajendra Singh Pawar, to formally welcome the guests and initiate the proceedings of the session.
Thank you, Professor Tiwari, and very hearty welcome first to Mr. Kamath with great gratitude, and then to all our students, guests, people in the family, the nurturers we call them, our staff, faculty, and our visiting faculty, which is also a large group. So very hearty welcome to this very important event, which we look forward to every year. So a couple of minutes on the genesis. We started our classes in November 2009, and we had requested our first chancellor, Dr. Karan Singh, to deliver the very first class on that land where we had started building the campus. So we called it the first lecture. And in his true style and spirit, he gave an exceptional talk. And then the first 11 talks, while he was chancellor for 10 years, those 11 talks were given by him, and it covered a vast range of subjects, essentially about philosophy, about education. And I think those are in our place a set of very valuable materials which we revisit. And every year, therefore, in November, around the middle of November on a Saturday, we would hold the annual lecture. And when he completed his 10 years and we got Dr. Consumerisation as the new chancellor, we talked, and Dr. Rangan said we should now start getting speakers every year who are most relevant on a subject that is most relevant. And last year, we had Dr. Naresh Trehan to talk of how to thrive in the times of COVID. We wanted it to be forward-looking, but we were all quite engaged with that topic, and we thought it's important. And that turned out to be a very popular program, viewed for a long period of time after that. This year, the setting is different. And when we were thinking about what should be the subject and the topic, we wanted it to be something forward-looking, something about the exciting present and the future, and also something which generates a lot of optimism and energy, which is what is the need of the hour after struggling through this very difficult period of COVID. And we could think of nobody better to meet these two objectives than Mr. Kamath, whom we have known. Vijay and I have known him for now 38 years. Soon after we started NIIT, the company. And Vijay, of course, when he introduces him, will give the whole story. But Mr. Kamath, to me personally, has represented a person who has many exceptional values, but the two I value the most is his optimism. And it's not just a shallow optimism. His optimism is always premised on some insights that he has about the future, which I have personally tracked in whatever role he has done, including the last few years running the biggest bank for this part of the world. But I always have watched very carefully. And Vijay Thadani, of course, would be going on the investor meets with him very often to see what does he say about the future and what does he say. And we've always had this very, not so very frequent, but very deep discussions every now and then. And I think I admire his ability to look into the future, and perhaps even more than that, to build optimism about the future in everybody he interacts with. So that was the rationale in a sense. And then I wasn't quite sure whether in the middle of his many things he'd be able to do it, but he was very kind. He agreed to be with us on this talk. And so that's what has brought Mr. Kamath to all of us. The annual lecture, as I mentioned, serves very often as a kind of an anchor for the future for us every year. It gets some very deep thoughts which are relevant for the moment and the future. In the first few years, we ran it concurrently with the convocation, then the numbers were very small. But then we decided, I think, in the 6th year. And that year, I remember we had Kiran Majumdar as the convocation speaker. And Dr. Karan Singh would give his lecture, but he said, this year the speech is so good, I'm going to bypass. So then we decided next year onward to separate the two. So now it continues to be in the tradition of the most, in a sense, the most important and thought-provoking and thought and future-creating, context-setting talk for us. So with that, once again, a very hearty welcome, Mr. Kamath. We all are ears. Look forward to hearing you.
Thank you, sir. Year 2020 was an unprecedented year, which has infiltrated day-to-day life. While adapting to this in limbo existence, we at NU have ushered into the new arena of digitally enhanced hybrid learning. May I now request President NIIT University to give you the glimpses of NU's transformational journey of 2020-2021.
Thank you, President Neha Tiwari. Mr. K.V. Kamath, Mr. Rajendra Pawar, Mr. Vijay Thadani, Mr. R.C. Malhotra and members of Board of Management, Professor Parimal Mandke and NU leadership, fellow nurturers, as our faculty and staff members are known as, Newtons as our students are known as, and other attendees, invitees. Last year has truly been very significant year for NIIT University, or NU as we call it. We started 4 new undergraduate degree programs: Bachelor of Technology in Cybersecurity, Bachelor of Technology in Data Science, Bachelor of Technology in Communications and Computer Engineering, and Bachelor of Business Administration. We launched Master of Technology in Cybersecurity, Master of Business Administration, Information Systems and Data Engineering, a very interesting course, and Postgraduate Diploma in Banking and Finance in collaboration with industry as part of our Industry Link program. NU celebrated its 11th convocation on 9th October 2021. The event was conducted in online mode. The chief guest was Dr. Arunabha Ghosh, Chief Executive Officer, Council on Energy, Environment and Water. We held our first international conference in humanities, social sciences, management and educational technology, Antan 2021. It was conducted in a hybrid, online and in-person mode in October 21. We started the Learn from Master series. It was launched last year to create an opportunity to experience and interact with brilliance. Professor P. Balram, Mr. Montek Singh Ahluwalia, Mr. Gurcharan Das, Dr. Ganesh Natarajan, and Dr. Soumya Swaminathan interacted with NU as a part of Learn from Master series. A flipped mode of interaction was employed in addition to live webinars. In flipped mode, lectures were pre-recorded and were made available to NU, and subsequent discussions took place live. So it came out to be a very successful model. Utkarsh Fellowship has been instituted by Dr. Neena Verma and Mr. Yogesh Verma, the parents of late Newton Utkarsh Verma. An Utkarsh Reading Alcove has also been set up by them in NU library by books donated by them. This fellowship will be awarded every year to one deserving Newton. The fellowship endeavors to recognize and honor a Newton with non-conventional genius, exceptional depth on wide-ranging topics and issues beyond the scholastic curriculum, deep thinking ability, selfless, altruistic spirit, courage and resilience, and respect for nature, all things that NU stands for. Best Teacher Award has also been instituted by Professor V.S. Rao Foundation, and for academic year 2021, it's being given to Dr. Ganapati Rao Maradana. He's a faculty member from Mathematics and Basic Sciences. He's a passionate teacher and has been with NU for the past 6 years. NU, as a university, received recognition as winner for the efforts made towards sustainability through activities like plantation, waste management, and air earth tunnels, etc. In the International Conference on Restore Our Earth, ICORE, a video compiled and it was showcased and showcasing the NU activities, and was also played during the valedictory function of the conference and was very well received. Shri Rajendra Singh, also known as Waterman of India, Mr. Pradeep Krishan, filmmaker and a devout environmentalist, Mrs. Sahana Singh, an author and historian, they visited NU campus to interact with us and help us move forward in our efforts of conservation and building upon our legacy. It has been a challenging year also due to pandemic. There was a break in campus activities and in-person teaching and learning. In fact, it was a break in everything. Nurturers resumed functioning from campus in December 2020. But then a break happened and they returned to campus only in September 2021 after the second wave of the pandemic. However, it gave us the opportunity to further develop our online education and capabilities. The nurturers and Newtons seamlessly moved to online education. Nugget, that is our digital learning and teaching platform, developed and evolved at a furious pace to minimize the impact of the changeover and bring in additional facilities that the digital and online mode presented. I'm proud to present that NU continued to achieve all the academic milestones despite the pandemic. All timelines were honored, all industry practice internships were carried out online, all placement activities took place online, everyone was placed as usual, and with a 95% role fitment. Newtons continued to carry out the sports, cultural and recreational activities. Some could easily be carried out online, while others that traditionally require physical proximity, like athletics, they were carried out in a creative manners with the help of technology. And that was very heartening to see the zeal by which the students, the Newtons, carried out all their activities. And I'm once again very proud to say that NU successfully transformed into a digital university for a while in its functionality. It was completely digital for a while. That's something which I, as president, and on behalf of all that is NU community, feel very proud of. I've been to many institutions, but the seamless manner in which the university transformed itself with the minimum impact is very noteworthy. With that, I give you back to Professor Tiwari. That was a brief report. Of course, there's a detailed report also, and if anyone would like to know more about something, that we can carry on. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I have the honor of inviting our co-founder, Mr. Vijay Thadani, to welcome Mr. K.V. Kamath for the 13th annual lecture. Sir, you are on mute.
Okay, I'll have to. So, thank you, Professor Neha Tiwari. Distinguished guests, members of the NU Board of Management, my dear nurturers, and my dear Newtons. A very good morning and a hearty welcome to the 13th annual lecture once again. For the benefit of those who are new to NIIT University, I just thought I'll repeat. We refer to our students as Newtons and our faculty and staff as nurturers, each of them living up to their literal meanings, in addition to having the letters N and U common to them. Keeping with the tradition of annual lectures at NU, like Raji just pointed out, this year we have picked up a very current and hotly debated topic of digital currencies, which will be examined in the backdrop of revival of economic growth on one hand and Digital India, the flagship program of the government for digital empowerment, on the other. If today we can run our personal and professional lives without ever visiting a bank branch, if Indian banks and financial institutions are able to project our financial might across the world, if today we can proudly showcase the soft power of the resurgent India and its intellectual heft in the multilateral financial institutions, then we owe a word of thanks to many reformers who had the gift of sight to envision the future, enroll others around them, and then implement the vision in an exemplary manner so as to emerge as role models. We have one banker amongst us who has weathered many a storm, who has been an active part of this evolution, an eternal optimist, and who's seen as the poster boy of the reforms. His journey lives up to the adage, good bankers, like good tea, are appreciated when they are in hot water. Ladies and gentlemen, it's my proud privilege to introduce Mr. K.V. Kamath to you. Through a continuous string of successes in leading multiple domestic and multilateral institutions, he has resolutely conveyed that the old maxim, a souffle never rises twice, does not exist in his lexicon. After completing his undergraduate studies in engineering from REC Surathkal and his postgraduate studies in management from the Indian Institute of Management, Ahmedabad in 1971, Mr. Kamath started his career with ICICI Limited, a development bank at that time, in project finance. After a decade plus of successful stints in ICICI, he joined the Asian Development Bank, ADB, in Manila. Mr. Kamath returned to India to be the founding managing director and chief executive officer at ICICI Bank and is widely hailed for catapulting ICICI Bank Limited to its preeminent position in the Indian banking industry. As I mentioned, an eternal optimist that he is, with an always positive attitude, founding new institutions comes very naturally to him. Mr. K.V. Kamath served as the first president of the new development bank set up by the BRICS countries and led the bank from its founding in 2015 to 2020. He has recently been appointed as the chairman of the newly constituted National Bank for Financing Infrastructure and Development, NABFID. Being a strategic thinker and a charismatic leader, Mr. Kamath served as the non-executive chairman of the board of IT major Infosys Limited. He also served as the president of the Confederation of Indian Industry, the country's apex body in Apex Industry Association, has also served as the co-chair of the World Economic Forum's annual meeting in Davos. Mr. Kamath was conferred the Padma Bhushan, one of India's highest civilian honors, in 2008. He has received widespread recognition internationally, including CNBC's Asian Business Leader in 2001, Businessman of the Year by Forbes Asia, and Business Leader of the Year by the Economic Times India in 2007. Mr. Kamath's wise counsel, cutting across all shades of political opinion, both nationally and overseas, is a testament to his professional acumen. At NIIT, we are very proud of our association with him over the last 4 decades. It's an association built on mutual trust and rich in partnership at a professional level and mentoring at a personal one, leading to the creation of novel products and innovative financing solutions. Interestingly, in each of the 4 decades, a very significant step got taken in partnership with Mr. Kamath. Starting with the first one. Recently, our Prime Minister urged the Indian bankers to be business partners to the industry rather than an approving authority. Interestingly, Mr. Kamath has been playing that role very effectively since mid-80s, when under his leadership, ICICI crafted a very innovative financing solution for a young startup called NIIT. In 90s, ICICI played a major role in taking NIIT through its IPO, the very first one in the Indian IT industry. In the first decade of the 21st century, he exhorted us to explore wider horizons, which resulted in an enduring partnership with ICICI Bank, amongst others in training BFSI professionals. And in the decade that just passed, Mr. Kamath was instrumental in ICICI Bank co-creating a unique and successful MBA program with NIT University, a program which is much admired as an example of industry-academia collaboration. Ladies and gentlemen, with this as the background, I have great pleasure in presenting to you Mr. Kundapur Vaman Kamath. Mr. Kamath, over to you.
Morning. Thank you, Vijay. Thank you, Rajiv. Again, Board of Honors of NIIT University, the nurturers, the Newtons, ladies and gentlemen, I am privileged and honored to be here to deliver this lecture. Again, let me reciprocate. I think it's been 4 decades of relationship with NIIT, as it were, and now I'm here talking to NU. I just want to touch on one aspect of these 4 years, because otherwise I'll speak for the next 30 minutes on this. You talked about the revolution that took place in banking, where you could do banking from home. But you were modest enough to just comment that the partnership with BFSI, the BFSI front with ICICI Bank. I will go one step further. But for that partnership, I do not think, and I reiterate, I do not think Indian banking would be where it was, where it is today. When I look back, it would have been impossible, because at that point in time, to get the new mind youngsters to staff the bank branches, there was no way we could have done it in a physical world or done it by ourselves. The partnership with you, which I think at one stage produced 5,000 to 10,000 young graduates. I do not know the exact number that it went to later on. But at that crucial junction, early 2000s, this large inflow of talent, rightly equipped, technology equipped, modern banking equipped, came into the banking, first ICICI, and then we, I think, opened it up to everybody else who wanted to recruit. I think actually set the foundation for the new banking that you see in the country over the last 20 years, leading to what you see in the banking space today. So thank you, and thank the team that was with you and with us in helping create this. Moving on, I'm going to simplify what is my talk today, because there are 2 or 3 things that were put out there. So I thought in today's context, it is best to have a very simple phrase which everybody understands and then develop it. I'm going to call this the digital path. So the theme of my lecture today is the digital path. what I will cover here is a reset of minds to a digital mindset. This is from the first lockdown to today. Our minds got reset to a digital mindset. The second part is going to be the rise of technology. You can call it digitech, you can call it digifinance, you can call it finnovation, and the impact of this rise of new technology. Indeed, cryptos will be a part of this this section of my talk. The third is the economic recovery, the productivity gains, all leading to what I would call a digital economy. Because I see a digital economy as the key driver of growth in the future. Keeping this in background, just maybe a few sentences on leading into the future and the scenario that we are taking off from in an Indian context and a global context. So let us straight away get into the hallmarks of this disruption. And the first one that I mentioned, a reset of minds. Reset of minds, to me, when I observe what has happened, has brought about a key fundamental which otherwise doesn't happen in organizations, doesn't happen in individuals, doesn't happen in people around us. And that is receptivity to change, acceptance of change. I remember a professor from Michigan who once he was with C.K. Prahlad, and he talked to 30 Indian CEOs, and he said on a 10-point scale, this is 1995-96, how volatile is the environment? 10, highest. How capable is your organization? 9 or 10. What is your ability to change? And the answer, I gave the answer, I had just come in as CEO, was 3 or 4 for that time. Indian industry generally felt 5 or 6 or something like that. So what the professor said is, if you're not able to change your mind, you're going to be blown away. He gave some examples of some companies which he said, on a 10-point scale, we're 15. And we said it's anarchy. And he said, yes, at certain points in time, you need anarchy because your ability to change should break the scale that you're operating on. Company that he mentioned at that point in time, 96, mind you, 15 on a 10-point scale was Nokia. And you can imagine what happens to a company then which closes its mind. That's Nokia of 2009, 2010, the story was over. From a company which in 15 years earlier was 15 on a 10-point scale, I would think probably got to 5 or 6 on that 10-point scale. It was blown away by competition. So change is key, and this brought about change in your apartment complex, in the ladies who actually started a supply chain and kept it going, ladies who adopted payment systems they had never used before, vendors who actually played ball, who actually created an app, took in payments online and so on. We forget these things. Corporates we talk about, but the retail level, at the individual level, if this is done, you're halfway to success. So the receptivity of change and the acceptance of change happened in the blink of an eye, because within the first or second week, we had set up our supply chains. So that's the speed at which you could act. And of course, as part of this, we embraced technology. We embraced technology of all sorts. We saw older ladies now playing with Google Sheets, working with Excel, working with apps, and of course going online and making payments. So they embraced technology at a speed which never happened. And I call it real time. The blink translates to real time. All this happened in real time. The change happened in real time. And just to make it stick in our minds, this happened at all levels. It happened at a company's level. It happened at the client of the company's level. It happened at the individual level. And to me, I think March 2020 was a time that we accepted lateral thought. And we were willing to look at everything around us with a lateral thought. And I think a large part of our coming out of the challenge, the way we have, is due to this acceptance of change and lateral thought. To me, that is the foundation of acceptance of technology and everything digital. So I spent probably 2 minutes more than I could have on this to establish or state that in my view, change is now a given. Change otherwise would have been a challenge. So one event has changed our mindset to embracing the future. The future is technology. And that brings me to the second part that I want to talk of is the meat of my talk today, the rise of technology. You can give it any name. I heard somebody say it is Finovate, if it's in the financial context, Finvest, and so on. Digitech in some other context, Digifinance in some other context. But to me, all what I call new technology. New technology which is ready to go, as it were, quick to install, easy to understand, and scales very easily. Now, you can give it any name, be used in any business, but that to me is what is new technology. Characteristics of this new technology, I will put under what I call 5 Ds. It's demographic. Typically, we understand what's demographic. It's democratic. Again, we understand what's democratic, but I probably have a slightly different spin on it. It is dematerialized. Again, slightly different spin when I talk about it. It is digital and disruptive. That everybody knows, and I don't have to put a spin on it. Demographic, I would mean, when you first heard the phrase a few decades back, a couple of decades back, we thought of the demographic dividend, which was the youth of the country driving it. But to me, what has happened is we are revisiting this phrase. Because if what I said earlier is right, that people of all ages have embraced digital and everything around it as a way of life, and their minds have changed, your demographic equation now is different. It is not necessarily the new, it is the youth and the young, but it also embraces older people. Where and how it ends, we can discuss, but it is a much wider set than we would have imagined just a few years back. A demographic advantage meant that young people in the 20 to maybe a 30-year range, and the rest of them were outside this because they were probably thought to be incapable of embracing change. They have, so your demographic set is wider. And to marketers and to companies, this becomes a very important part if they go ahead. Democratic, yes, we typically understand the phrase, but I want to use a simple example to drive it home. Democratic would mean to me the handheld device which is in your hand, whatever device you hold, its ability to do various things, I will talk of in dematerialized. But democratic, today, you as well as somebody who helps you, somebody in the village, somebody sitting remotely, all have access to that device, all have access to the same data at the same time. Most importantly, it has become affordable. The device is affordable. And at times, you may feel that the person with whom you are interacting cannot afford the device. But you have to interact with the person, so you provide the person a device. So to me, democratic movement happened in various ways. Cost reduction, you are giving away a device because it is part of the new transaction norm has made the process. And of course, along with that, affordability of data makes it very easy for everybody to participate in the outcomes of this new digital rise. And of course, this brings us to what I call the rise of the lay user. And I will give examples of the lay user later on. By that, I mean, not the people that we would have thought would have embraced and made a big go with technology, but the lay user who has embraced technology and made a big go. I think we need to celebrate them and talk about their stories. Dematerialized, very simple. The device in your hand does 10 jobs, maybe more. It was only a phone. It's a data communication device. It tells you time, it takes pictures at all. It gives you health, it saves your life. I mean, what you could not imagine just a few years back, it does. And I can tell you this, if you had the proper device, it's probably logged your health for the last 5 years. As I found to my pleasant surprise just the other day, that I had records, my watch had kept records, and my phone was giving me records of what happened 5 years back. Only other way I could get that record by was wearing a Holter monitor, and I had to do it for 24 hours. I thought, when I have 5 years records, why do I need a Holter monitor? And I did not know that I had those records. So what I'm saying is, this device is dematerialized and does much more than what we, as I said, digital and disruptive is well understood. And I wanted to put this in context. That is, we have a mindset which is changed, and we are working in a world with these 5 Ds. And that provides us the base to get into the next part of what I want to talk about, that within the context of technology, That is the unleashing of the digital super cycle. We heard Honorable Prime Minister talk of the digital super cycle. He's talked about that being the next driver for this country. I want to put that in context because then we bring meaning to all we are talking about. To me, in the context of the digital super cycle, that it will happen is a given. So let us not even spend a minute arguing or going into whether it will happen or not. It will happen in every single area, every single company, every single individual. I think the issue that we need to think about is how do we survive these disruptions? Disruptions are going to happen. How do we survive these disruptions? I'll give you small stories as we go along because I think storytelling is probably the best way in which you understand and internalize things. I will give you the example of the New Development Bank, the NDB. So we started out by saying that for a bank with 10 billion in capital, 5 countries, and so on, we need to be the lowest cost. Ages ago, 20 years back, I think both Vijay and as you know, we said that about ICICI. We need to provide technology or run technology at 1/10 the cost. And we did. So here we said, we didn't put a number. We said lowest cost. We said, let's do an experiment. Can we go on Google and do a search? Top 10 cloud-based HR systems. Top 10 cloud-based ERP. You get the gist of what I'm saying. Lo and behold, yes, there is a list. And one is a Gartner list, something is somewhere, is from somewhere. You ask a young bright mind, not a technology guy, young bright mind, go into this, see if there's a YouTube video on this. You see how easy this is or how difficult it is. And thereafter, ask a user, say you HR user in another company, will you please go into this and tell me how good this is? Or somebody else to say, what is the antecedent of this ERP company that we are looking at? And what do you think about it? Check with the user base. Then bring the technology guys in. So, the whole cycle is reversed in this world where the layperson, I'm saying the layperson who went to Google and did the search, the layperson who went to YouTube and saw it, was actually the guy who decided what technology we would use. Of course, we went through an RFP and other things. Long story short, the total cost of technology at New Development Bank was less than $1.5 million. But annual cost is probably $500,000. Like to like, the same time there was another development bank set up in Beijing. The cost of installed technology were between $15 and $20 million. The cost of technology search, if I'm not wrong, was also significantly more than what we spent on actually putting in as technology. So I'm not trying to say that this is, oh, great, we did a great job. I'm saying see where technology has gone and see what it does to you today. What you otherwise needed a tech team to specify what you should go into and so forth. The tech tools available to you, the search tools available to you, all driven by technology, make it possible. So what I'm saying is that access to technology has become so simple. And then you put in context what the disruptor is going to do to you. So if I were to just use the example, just imagine what a new startup, let us say the securities business, that is broking business, can do. The sort of tools that I explained to just now is available. And for this company, probably available at lesser cost than what it was for NDB. You see the cost of disruption, virtually nil. He can bootstrap himself, get technology, and challenge the incumbent with 10 or 15 years or 20 years of. And that is exactly what's happening, not just in the securities business, but across the chain in terms of everything financial as it were. Add to this, again, we have people who have grown in technology. But I was surprised. Of course, when we were driving ICICI's technology, we believed in the simple principle, Moore's law. We said if Moore's law is going to work pace with every 2 years, technological price performance squares, then, and the cost, of course, drops by that. And I don't grow by that rate, which, of course, a bank can't grow by that rate. You can grow 10, 15, 20%, but you can't square what you're doing. So you are always safe embracing new technology. This was our philosophy in 98 when we said we can't afford a mainframe, so we're going to do something else. So this time around, when I was at NDB, I happened to ask Vishal Sikka, my old colleague at Infosys, as to at what pace is AI growing. Again, being a tech university, probably not the answer, but it is important to reiterate it. He said it is doubling every 3.4 months. It's doubling every 3.5. That is price performance of AI. So a simple rule of thumb, over a year, it should be more than 10x improved in terms of price performance. So you can imagine what it is doing to everything around us with the continuous drop in, or the improvement in price performance, the cost dropping and performance improving. So where does all this take us? To a new universe where technology, the installed cost of technology is a giveaway. You can bootstrap yourself and do. And AI is coming in, the cost which is getting to be virtually free. And I gave the examples that you have brokers, you have AMCs, you have insurance companies, you have banking, and of course you have got other corporates. I'm just talking in terms of the disruption potential. Not that everybody will be disrupted. So let us not misunderstand. There will be people who will know how to live in this world, who will, of course, fight it out, and they have a history with them, positive history, as long as they are willing to change their mindset. Now, of course, you have interesting examples of what is happening in this globally, what is happening with this, in the Eastern world, and what's happening in India. By that I mean the sort of how the markets look at these companies, the valuation that markets give. So you had the story in China of and Tencent. You have of course Alibaba. You have what Ping An was actually an insurance company, became a bank, became an AMC, and today is probably a health service provider online with the market valuations which can be they can be proud of. We won't go into what has happened in the recent past in terms of some of these companies being corrected. That's not for us. Then you come to Indian platforms. Again, embraced. Do not go by what has happened in the last 1 month or so. These are early days. I think the market is trying to learn to value this company. I would rather look at what these companies have created. To me, what these companies have created is real. It is tangible. It is in a different space from which the most companies are used to. It is not necessarily in the physical space. It is in a different context, different environment. The way you grow there is different. You may earn losses, but then I think valuations will correct and valuations will find a norm. But you can't take away from them what they have created. And if this ecosystem grows, and it will grow, that contributes to the digital super cycle. We'll come to that in a moment. Again, in NASDAQ, the latest one that I read 2 days back or 3 days back was this company called Rivian, a truck manufacturer, which is like Tesla, electric. Day one of listing, it has got 100 billion market cap. Now, again, is it a real valuation? Is it unreal? What do they bring to the table? Time will tell. But clearly, markets, public, informed investors, and so on are understanding that there is something happening. And price will be, the level will be found in due course. So I reiterate, do not look at price up, down. Look at what is being the underlying that they've delivered for common good. That will drive the growth that is there. How big could be the digital super cycle? Digital super cycle in China at this point in time is between 35 to 40% of the economy. So the GDP today is 12 trillion, 35 to 40% is driven by digital. In India, 3 trillion economy, what is it? Probably 5 to 7%. I look at it as a positive, 5 to 7%. Then you have got scope to go to 25 to 30% or 35 to 40%. Now, and I would like to look at it as the top layer of growth that happens in the country. So if we are looking at 7 to 10% growth, and we can take digital to 25 to 30% growth, the arithmetic is very simple. I would say add 3% to 10%, you got 13%. Because 8% add 25 to 30%, you are over 10%. But to me, digital will drive a whole part of the economy, along with other areas. Infrastructure, you have manufacturing, of course, agriculture at first end, services and so on. But digital and digital services to me will be the fastest growing side of our economy in the next foreseeable futures. And you are seeing a company that I won't name them, and they are becoming the new employment driver. They are the new cores on the street, as it were, which are actually the providers of employment. Again, Raji and Sudhani will understand, going back to 2000, who provided the momentum to the economy? Indian industry was coming out of a real slump which you had never seen. It is the white-collar jobs created by technology companies. Nobody is initially acknowledged. Then came a report from CRISIL that for every white-collar job, 4 other jobs are being created. How? The person has somebody to help at home, the person buys a scooter or a motorcycle, then somebody is filling gas, somebody is fixing the car, driver, so on and so forth. 4 jobs. This is a CRISIL report that came out. It became a multiplier job. I believe the digital economy has the same scope. The scope to do this in the manufacturing side is limited, but being different pay structure, different earning structure, different expectations in areas which we talked about, whether it is the white collar or the new digital white collar employee, I think the same sort of multiplier effect will happen. And very quickly we'll find, along with core employment provided by the 2 or 3 historical drivers, such as agriculture or infrastructure or manufacturing, you will see digital being the biggest driver, just as IT was the biggest driver in the years 2001 onwards. Now, of course, I talked about the speed of disruption. And I gave you some examples of what's happening in the financial services business. It's only going to go even higher. I'm going to give 2 stories here, which I call them hot case stories, which typically no one will talk about. So I'm going to talk about it. The first is the new consumer who is a product of YouTube. The new consumer who is a product of YouTube. Some of you probably will understand what I'm saying. Some will go to YouTube and see. If you go to YouTube and look at who are the Indian content creators, I'm not talking about influencers. They may become influencers later on. Good luck to them. I have nothing against them. Today they are content creators. What are they content creating? 10 minutes of content on their life. Where do they come from? Village India, rural India. Who's promoting them? YouTube. Why are they getting promoted? Because YouTube believes in their algorithm that is where India is, and that is where most advertisers will come to drive advertisements. Now, I think it's not proper in this lecture to name, but if you look at bloggers who have come from villages, who a year back had virtually no subscribers, who today have 10 million subscribers, who post on a daily basis, you do a small Google search, you will find who are the top 10 daily content creators, you'll get the name. With the highest viewership, you'll get the name. So I'll leave it as a mystery to you. So 10 million subscribers, within 1 to 2 hours of posting a video, video every day on YouTube, 4 million to 5 million views, going to 6 to 7 million views. Now, so what, you will say? So I come now to how is he a consumer? This person came from a small village, had a small home. The village, you can understand where I came from. A year later now, he moves to a larger home, probably in another city. He has air conditioners put in all rooms. He's gone from his first motorcycle to a second motorcycle to a first car to a second car. And now, of course, his wealth increases. And all these things that he has put in, I celebrate, because that's driving the GDP. And it is not pent-up demand. If you talk to companies, they'll say it's pent-up demand. I think pent-up demand was over and done with first quarter after opening up, or that is the last quarter of last calendar year. 3 quarters of this year, it is the new guys who are driving economy. And like the white-collar, people who created 4 jobs, these guys are creating. I took only one example. There are a myriad like this. There are a myriad like this who are coming up. Now, didn't end there. Let me give the economics of this, the people who are curious. Also, you can search and get it on YouTube. For every million views, YouTube shares $500 to you out of their ad income. So we assume that is $2,000 YouTube earns, 500 goes to you. So let's assume these people this gentleman is now earning 4 to 5 million. Actually, his run rate is now higher. It is 6 to 7. I will simplify it to 4 million or 5 million. 4 million, $500 a million, that's $2,000 a day, 365 days is blocking. He is hitting $1 million. Good. Now imagine what this does to the economic progress. And there are bloggers who are blogging from rural India. There is a blogger who is a brick maker, who is making int, who is making actually bricks. The channel called Village Cooking Channel. It has got myriad times ordered different number of subscribers than this blogger that I said. That I named Village Cooking Channel. And they post maybe 8 to 10 days, once in 8 to 10 days. 4 people go into a field, put char, int, and cook. And their viewership is in crores within 8 to 10 days. Earnings would be in the same range. What I'm saying is new technologies, new modalities are giving you potential, which we are still blind to. Only party that is looking at the potential and driving this is YouTube. Their algos are working this, and their algos are working. As long as it benefits somebody, as long as it then percolates down, I will celebrate this. And you got bloggers in every single, you got people who are traveling the world, Indian bloggers who are traveling the world and blogging. You got people who are riding India on a motorcycle, ladies, men. You got people who are commenting on cars on a daily basis. Cars. You can say, what's there in a car? But the person is now reaching 500,000 views. I'm sure in a couple of months it will be 1 million views. So what I'm saying is the whole new universe driven by digital, which we have no knowledge of. We are in our cocoons and we need to look at it. You may say that Mr. Kamath is spending all his time on this. No, this is my go to sleep. I watch this for maybe 15 minutes. Each of these blogs, I speed scroll through it for 1 minute, 1.5 minutes. I see some of the comments. The comments are interesting. There's an aspiration now set up, and people are actually celebrating these new creators as it. So what I'm saying is it's something new. This is first hot case story that we don't know what is happening here. Digital is driving this. The second thing is 2 weeks back, suddenly I was struck when I saw in the papers, at least in Maharashtra, that in Maharashtra they had e-challan for traffic violations. Over 1 million challans were issued. I said, this is something to celebrate, not one para in a paper. This should be celebrated, talked at all that through a system of probably cameras and other things now, you're getting each challan. And we're all oblivious. And what was the para that came out there? He said, if you don't pay this by such and such a date, you will have to come to court and pay. So good, I'm happy about this. Then I found, is it really in practice? A few days later, I was driving and there was a signal. And that signal, I found a few policemen busy on their phones. They would look at the phone number, the car number, and and then they would pull out some cards. Then I realized they're now actually asking you pay up. Look at the power of technology. By putting the car number in, the policeman knows whether you have a challan or not. He pulls you out and says, do you want to pay now or do you want to go to the pay? Most people today with the UPI will probably say, I will pay with the pay just now. So look at where technology is taking up. Of course, the one step. The next step is, I don't think the policeman even will put down a number. He'll just scan your number and it will tell him whether what is due on your number. So the whole process gets speeded up. That brings me to the subject that Raji and Vijay wanted me to talk on, cryptos. I will be brief on this subject because I think we are all navigating our way through something called cryptos. First question that comes to my mind is it an asset? Because now clearly there is a debate around, is it an asset? Earlier debate was, it is a currency. Now I think that debate is slowly fading. That it is not a currency is clear. And nobody is acknowledging that it is a currency, except some countries, maybe small countries somewhere, which want to do it. So you clearly have a problem in terms of defining what it is. If it is, you are still questioning if it's an asset, you then need to know how exactly is this created? How do you set value? And that value, how should it fluctuate? You cannot have a situation where an asset fluctuates because somebody said something somewhere, or somebody woke up the left side of the bed or the right side of the bed, it goes up by 6% and tomorrow comes down by 10%, again goes up. Then you've got something structurally not right with the asset. And may take time before it is accepted as an asset when you have determinants as to what actually is the underlying value and how should it move. So clearly this is far from it as of this stage. I mentioned the price gyration, which bring high volatility. Let us say all this, we take it as given. Now there seems to be, it's wearing around that needs to be regulated. That's what everyone who is in this space says. The question is, who will regulate this? Clearly, it cannot be regulated as a currency. If it is regulated as an asset, what are the rules which it will be regulated? How will you cope up with the market disruptions that will happen when you have got gyrations of the sort that you see in this market? So clearly, we have questions unanswered on this. At least in the Indian context, the central bank, that is the Reserve Bank of India, has a clear view that this is not something that they would be in favor of. And I do not think any other regulator is, as of now, embracing it. The government will have to think this through, and I'm sure the government will think it through and lay down the law, which, if this is to be introduced in an appropriate manner, the law under which it will operate. That brings me to some of being a new tech university. Some of the arguments put forth that, but it is a software. It's a software on which blockchain runs. The question is, are not tech companies today willing to write you a blockchain-based program? Whether you want to use it or not is separate. My understanding is, yes, it could. They could. So then we need to get a better correlation as to between the software, the value embedded in the software, and again, what happens to it as an asset. And then you'll have to explain why the price gyrations. Because stock that it is a safe thing. But then you have heard of stories where exchanges have vanished, wallets have emptied, and trading block leading to huge losses. Just last week, or was it a Squid Game? Somewhere read that the gain was 230,000%. Maybe a few zeros here or there, but this was what, when I looked up, I got. And then in the blink of an eye, the value became zero. So I would just end by saying that at this point in time, there's a huge risk in terms of not understanding the asset and not understanding what could be the downside risks on this. So I would look at it with caution. Does it mean that people are not in this game? People are in this game. And I think there are investment advisors suggesting that this could be a small part of your portfolio, but that is for each one of them what they believe is the right thing. So I will not venture down into a sphere beyond that. Let us wait for the government to apply its mind and then come out with what are the next steps. But at this point in time, to me, it is fraught with downside risks which are not known. That's all that I would say. Quickly, on the digital economic recovery, as it were, I said 20-25% should come from 25 to 30% should come from the digital pie on top. Having said that, over the last 2 years, between the government and RBI, they acted fast. I think all the steps that they took were appropriate, and the economy got reset very quickly. Very interestingly, productivity gains of 10 to 25% are seen across industry. And companies learn to do with lesser people. Companies learn to put in process innovation and technology innovation. So you are seeing 25% gain. Initially, I did this as a dipstick, asking CII in their fora and members in their fora. This more or less validated. But the biggest validation is if you look at quarter-on-quarter profitability of corporate India as a whole. 25% improvement in EBITDA levels, and net profit levels. Not possible without productivity gains. Yes, some places there have been, metals and others price increases. But the government also held interest rates. That is, the Reserve Bank held interest rates, provided ample liquidity, and good for us that the bad debt scenario has been much better than was estimated. So the expert committee, which was constituted to provide handholding to distressed assets, in the end, we did only about 10% of what we thought would be distressed became, our agenda, as it were. Companies are deleveraged, economy is firing on all points, firing on all levels. Pain points are few, and government's pain also is significantly low because tax collections have been robust, and the outlay that the government had to put out is also far lesser than what they thought. The economy has come up faster. States and the center today are sitting on something like 4.5 lakh crores of liquidity. They have this national monetization pipeline of 6 lakh crores, which should have momentum. And I think the bad bank they have created is a good idea, which should clean up the banking system, which is already cleaned up. So I think economy should be in good nick to provide the digital momentum to the new India. And we will have to internalize as digital super cycle kicks in that this is the new way to grow. And existing incumbents will have to figure out how to avoid disruption. And the new companies will look at how to scale up and be the challenge. I've indicated to you where the challenges should be. Financial sector probably will face the biggest challenge. The platforms will be the unknowns. They could be huge disruptors, but they're clearly an unknown today. The ability to cause disruption and drive the economy. Every single business, in my view, is vulnerable. I would look at it this way. Earlier, technology was a bar. Now it is a change agent. It is low cost and easy. It is adaptive. And it works against, primarily it works against incumbents. But if incumbents have a change in mind, then it works for them. And clearly, you can see the future from incumbents who change and incumbents who do not change. To end my lecture, sustainability super cycle will future growth, will fuel growth. And I see the runway as 25 years for all these things that I mentioned, because this is sustainable growth that we would have. And clearly, as long as there is a supportive environment in terms of interest rates, liquidity, digital mindset, ability to embrace, I think what we can dream to an India which will grow at 10% plus for a long, long period of time. So with this optimistic outlook, I will bring my chat to a close. I went about 5 minutes over what I had said myself. I thought I'll speak 35 minutes. I think we have talked for about 40 minutes, but I hand it back to Vijay and Raj. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Kamath. Go ahead, Neha.
Thank you, sir, for your words of wisdom. It was indeed an enlightening speech. The floor is now open for question and answers. May I request Mr. Vijay Thadani to open the forum with his questions?
Yeah. So we have a bunch of questions, Mr. Kamath. Truly fascinating. And how you simplify life, which is very complex all around us, I think continues to fascinate me even more about what are the possibilities. I think that example of the village folks, talking about their life stories. We all think we are very steeped in technology and know everything that is happening. Or actually, I was caught absolutely unawares that somebody teaching cooking on traditional ways is right now making millions of dollars with that. So I think there is true learning for each one of us, and I'm sure it will open the mindsets and minds of our Newtons very, very dramatically. I want to open it for questions, of which I have received a few, but I thought I'll have Raji trigger off first. Raji, you can, and those who are on the panel, and then I'll soon switch to Newtons, whose questions will most probably be very, very interesting.
Thank you. Thanks very much, Vijay. And I do want to keep it short because Newtons have interesting questions. I also want to acknowledge that we have a number of our board members in the discussion today. Mr. Professor R.C. Malhotra, Harpal, Mr. Harpal Singh, Dr. Day, Rajendran. And we also, interestingly, have a couple of our past vice chancellors. I can see Professor Rao. I can also see Rajiv Shore. So I would encourage them to also forward their questions to Vijay, or at least Harpal would be ready. Vijay, whenever you call him in, he's sent a message, he'll be ready. So my question to you, Mr. Kamath, is that, the education system is the last bastion of reform. I thought it was only in India, but in the 40 odd countries where we operated, wherever I got a chance to meet with the leaders of the country, I came to the same conclusion, that education is the last bastion of reform. And now we are talking, if we hear you speaking, we are saying that there's a whole different stuff going on out there. And any of the case studies, even from Harvard, will have little relevance when things are changing in real time and we have to look at where things are emerging from. So what would be a quick kind of suggestion if you had to tell NU that, look, just turn yourselves upside down? What are one or two thoughts which come to your mind of saying, what should we throw out? And what are one or two new things that we should do more? I know it's a big question, but quick, short, top of mind response.
I feel challenged to answer this because I honestly mean there are all the nurturers there who have immense experience in this. I would just say that the last 4 years have shown us what digital could do. I think we need to look at how we bring the learnings from this, not the nugget. You already have the nugget. I'm not talking about that in terms of how you teach, but what are the learnings? For example, I'd stay on the YouTube example. How is YouTube running the algorithm, and how is it then able to basically grow the subscriber base of a content creator? That is not what you should learn. I'm saying, what do you learn from this? To me, what I'm learning from this is that there are new ways in which today the consumer can be identified. There are new ways in which he can be nurtured. New ways in which you could then reach your customer. This was the advertising agency. How did you do it in the past? You had a market research agency do this. Now, if my school today, old school today, is going to teach market research, I would think it is obsolete. We will have to learn lessons from what and how is YouTube reaching out. I don't mean necessarily YouTube. There could be myriad other people are doing the same. So a university should really look at what is happening and who is creating knowledge today in what form. They will not tell you it is knowledge, but it is knowledge. And how can we then internalize this knowledge, package it into a teaching module, and make our Newtons better equipped? So I don't think there is any single this that is happening there today, and to me, in the sense, any single place where you can see this captured and being taught. It's all work in progress, and you will have to learn on the fly. And of course, if you listen to what some of the people are talking about, let's take this phrase metaverse that is coming up. To me, you have said what Facebook is doing, but to me, this is a new way in which knowledge will be created or co-created in real time, and experiences will be created. Now, they may talk of the social world. I'm talking of the education world. I would think the education field that we will look at 2 to 3 years from now, for a leader who knows how to embrace technology, I think opens up a completely new vista.
Thank you so much. I think we have to get you to campus to try and share with you some of the things we are doing. But lectures by people such as yourself are very much part of the thought-provoking process for us. So even when I requested Mr. Monte Carlo to give 10 lectures, he was wondering, he said, do you have economic students? I said, no, we don't have economic students. What we concluded, very interesting, he and I concluded, and Vijay and all of us in the NU team, and he put it very well. He says, the young students are voters of tomorrow. Okay. What is on their mind and what should be on their mind to be able to signal to those who rule the country of what needs to be done? So we have to teach them each subject from a viewpoint where they understand this, not a topic. So similarly, I think you've opened a lot of new avenues, a lot of new minds, and we will love to share with you what we're doing, but also perhaps to have you come and talk to our students late in the night, early in the morning, which is when they really want to listen. The class time, their minds are closed, as you know. Rajesh, I don't mean any offense, but we know how tough it is to get them into the structure where you want. They want you to come, they will want to be. So I think we're trying to do that as well. We have 100 acres. We have a 1,000-acre hillock behind us, by the way, which we're making into a forest. And we do talk of the forest university idea, sit under the tree with the guru and talk. Maybe you have a laptop. So many things are being tried. So with that, Vijay, I do know that Harpal also wants to ask a question, but I'll back to you.
Okay. So I first wanted to say, those who are on the panel, there is a small button called raise hand. You can press that and I will know that you want to ask a question. So I will pass it on to you. Right now, Harpal, you don't have to look for it. I know you have already raised hand. So I'll pass on to you. And Mr. Kamath, you will know Mr. Harpal Singh, amongst other things, on the CII National Council for many, many years. Yeah. Harpal, over to you.
So, thank you, Vijay. Mr. Kamath, if I can say that amongst all the accolades that you have been given, quite, I think, correctly and fairly, there's one that might have been missed out, for which I think you're probably legendary, is the fact that you bought into the Indian mindset of a very large group of the Indian citizen called women into a space where they are hugely respected now. And I think that bringing women leaders into the world of banking, I think you probably are singular in your contribution in that area. So may I start by saying thank you very much on behalf of all the women of the country for giving them that kind of legitimacy, which they rightfully deserve. And so that has been a great contribution. My question is really, again, in the world of digital, and this has got to do with big tech data and the relationship there. We know that big tech uses the data of every human who uses the digital space. They use this data as raw material, put that data together into saleable propositions, and then actually drive huge amounts of financial benefits as a consequence of them being able to consolidate that data. So me as an individual has data that I provide to big tech as a resource with respect to my habits, of what I do in entertainment, my situation with respect to health, my future aspirations with respect to futures and careers. And they take this data, which is raw material to them, convert it into a saleable piece, which they sell in the market, make huge gains. Now, every other producer pays for the raw material. In this case, big tech does not pay for the raw material that is provided by every human who gets onto the digital platform. How can we have big tech pay for the raw material that they use, and obviously to the benefit of the common citizen? And might I even provoke it even more to say, if this were possible, it would be one way of straight away transferring a certain cost or a certain contribution to the citizen whose data is being used. So I, for instance, can say, you can use my data on health so long as you pay me an X amount for every time you use it, or for that matter in education, or for that matter in entertainment. Are we thinking, and if we can do that, possibly the entire world of social delivery of services can actually be funded by this very interesting aspect of how to consolidate data and make sure that the citizen gets a return for their contributions. That's the raw material. So just your thoughts about that.
Harpal Singh, I think 100% I am with you. And we have come to a stage now where I think governments, because they will be the ones who will have to regulate this. This will be regulated. And I'm already seeing when I look up what's happening in Europe, this is starting as a thin wedge from part of the government saying that people who have got this data, you cannot use it for targeted ads. And you will now see, if you look at ads in Europe, there are ads countering this. Raise your voice against this. So and so will not be able to get this targeted ad if the government succeeds. So they are also not running scared, but they realize what. But this to me is going to be momentum driven. The government will drive the momentum. And there is no way wherever in the world we have seen, the governments drive the momentum that industry can withstand it. So it will happen in a couple of ways. One is, like you said, you pay for it. But there would also situations where you may say, I don't want you to use at all. So it could be a combination of either payment or an option that you have of concretely saying don't use. Now, as of now, there is a whole sort of what I call sleight of hand going on part of the tech company. It is big data company. What are they doing? Basically, let's say app that is embedded, they want you to give certain permissions, not give all these. I think the government will now understand. It's part of a game. And once technology is available, then which is now available ubiquitously as it were, government will then say that this cannot go on. You cannot put the ball back to the customer and say, go to that app, go to. See, by default, it should not be. If you want to, then take it. So I'm sure with the evolution of technology, this is going to happen. Both will happen. That is, if you do not want your data to be used, you will have the right to prevent that. And if you then allow it, then payment that comes to you. Just like what I would call the YouTube content creator. Content creator is now paid for his content that allows an advertisement to run on that content, and he becomes a co-creator of that content. This is at a very basic level it is happening, but what you are saying is at a very deep level, at a much higher level. That can happen with the government. It will happen.
Thank you. Thank you.
So we have a question coming from one of our professors, Professor Ayan Nandi. He says a digital currency like Bitcoin is pseudonymous, while the rupee in the bank is mostly anonymous. Will the digital rupee, when it comes out to be anonymous, will the digital rupee, whenever it comes out, will it be anonymous, or everyone can see all the transactions in the blockchain as it happens to any cryptocurrency? So he's referring to the switch from physical to the digital.
Yeah, I think that question is a very relevant question, and to me, answer is very clear. It will not be anonymous, and that is why countries are already moving to embrace it. So, for example, China is openly talking about, and I think has progressed far on a central bank digital currency, which clearly then will be traceable and trackable. And of course, it will avoid a lot of the ills that we see today with the rupee in the physical form or rupee in the digital form that we see today. It can still be anonymous, but the digital rupee will be seen. Period.
Okay. This is a question from a student, Newton, Anil Bishnoi from IMBA. We have an integrated MBA program where people get in from class 12 and then graduate with an MBA. So he says, what could the government do to bridge the digital divide, which has also become much more, should I say, visible, though you said that we now, all of us have an access to the term which you used was democratize the availability of technology. But I think the fact remains that he feels that the digital divide has also become strongly visible. Before induction of digital currency, are there any steps to be taken before digital divide, on digital divide, so that digital currency therefore can find its way easier? Otherwise, it may create yet another division.
I think there are two things here. And this is a very good question. Digital currency needs much more work to be done. I'm sure that's going on in parallel. Yes, it has to be ubiquitous. It has to reach every individual. So from that point of view, the ability to reach every individual should be there, whereas the physical currency is going there. So it should not be that I am left out because I don't have a device or means to access this, clearly. But I would guess that if I look at transition over, let us say, last 15 years in terms of technology and technology reaching to the remotest point, this is trend continues, given the dropping cost, if the trend continued with the costs where they were even 2-3 years back, then I would say that I would have said that yes, what you have said is a real threat, and the digital divide will be like it cleaves apart. But the seamlessness with which it is now able to flow because of cost differentiation, I think is meaning a lot. I'll give a very small example. Till before the crisis, imagine how you paid your house help, and what was the mode and how did that. Today, during the lockdown, my house help has got his family somewhere in some remote area of Jharkhand. I press a button and money is transferred to this. He pops it and he basically checks with them whether the money has been received. Of course, it has been received. They go to an ATM and withdraw the cash. Or if they want to have a device, they could then transact further. So it has happened in a large context in certain areas, financial services and other areas. It is probably not happening so much, frankly, in ability to access information. Probably, there is a divide in people who have the ability to buy that data, even though it is cheap, buy that device, even if it is cheap, and then look at and inform themselves. And at the other end, people who may not be able to afford it. Now, I think that could happen, that divide could be bridged in 2 ways. Further drop in costs or appropriate government support to allow people who cannot afford this to again, in terms of university and schooling, you would be better informed than me. The level of the classrooms now, even in a village, are easily digital if anybody wants to. It is, and I do not know to what extent it has happened, but I can't see any constraint today in a village to have a completely digital classroom. Teacher in, but the content comes, and you probably have best-in-class teachers teaching. So the moment you do that, the difference between a well-taught urban kid and a kid in the village who was not well-taught completely vanishes. So there is no digital divide thereafter. But today there is a digital divide. I think the pace at which this change has happened, we should take stock another 18 months later, and we will see that the gap, the digital divide gap, is closing very fast. The gap in incomes may not change that fast.
No, I think you're right. I think on every day that gap is reducing, because as technology is becoming more affordable and digital India is finding inroads. So in fact, there were a number of questions which students had on how the digital currency will benefit an economy which is majorly agrarian. So I think your answer is in that. This was a question by Aditi Kapila, and unless you want to add something more to it.
What I'd say is that the digital currency, as I don't see any challenge in it reaching the last consumer or the last citizen of India as soon as we have a technology that is rolled out. But we can have, again, I have not thought through this, but we could have a hybrid situation where there is digital and where there is physical currency in those areas where we cannot reach the digital link. I'm sure this will happen as we talk, because then we will solve a lot of other problems that this country could have.
Okay, we have a question from Professor Abhishek Datta. He is referring to the whole issue of trust in the digital economy, or the lack thereof, or building trust. So he says, what according to you is the future of payment banks? I think he's referring to one example of recent past. They seem to find trouble with building trust without branches.
Yeah, there are 2 points here that I want to bring out. I think since the professor has raised this issue about trust and this, I think the first level of trust which all of us should be worried about is something that you are addressing in your university, is cyber security. I think that to me is the first layer of distrust that you might have for the digital economy. At the banking space, payment banks, and it's going to be a challenging time. So as I said, it's a continuum. The lowest point of that entry level is your broker. The next level is your asset management company. Next level is some of the insurance players, general insurance maybe, and life. And as you get thicker regulation, heavier regulation, the ability of new coals to start coming in is going to be difficult. So I would think that the payment banks fall in that category. It is not going to be easy for them to come and disrupt. So though the cost of technology is very low, trust has to be built, and the ability to provide the range of services that incumbents are providing is going to be also difficult. So it's not going to be easy for them. Of course, since this question has been raised, you now also have the word neobank. Neobank is nothing but an app which is linked to an existing bank, incumbent bank. So why do you need an app? Well, probably the theory is that the app developer and the creator has better skills at doing this than the bank. So you ride on a bank. To me, these are all passing things. I do not think that it will really lead to great destruction. I think the existing incumbent banks will have some time to embrace new things, and they will survive. But the entire financial sector value chain is under threat, and everyone will need to very quickly embrace change and reposition.
There was a follow-up question from Ayan Nandi on the same issue of anonymity. So if it is in the blockchain, my neighbor can also see it. My question is, will only the government see it or everyone? Today, my neighbor doesn't know how much, whom I pay, how much, and the privacy that I have. Will that get violated now?
I'm sure that safeguard will be built in by the government. Otherwise, it's not workable.
Yeah. Okay. Then we have a question from Monica Tatta from, again, an IMBA. She's a senior. She's going to be graduating next year. Climate change has been a hot topic with COP26 and commitments that Indian government has made for net zero transmission. How do you see the transition affect our economy, where most of our energy resources, our sources rely on fossil fuels and coal? Of course, not directly linked, but definitely digital economy, I have a feeling, will hasten our journey towards achieving those goals, perhaps.
That's a very good question, because it is in current context of what is happening in something around us. The answer to me is not simple, but we can probably give it a simple answer. I think India's stand at COP26 was very clear that you guys have done damage over the years. You guys, a few years back, these are the developed countries, committed $100 billion. Not $1 out of that has actually come into doing anything good. If you had given that, we could have hastened our path to retiring fossil-based plants, and not happen. Not only in India, but we are talking of around the globe, Africa, China, elsewhere. So we need more time, because we cannot sacrifice growth just on this agenda. That is but my own view is, if you look at what has happened in the last, say, 6 or 7 years to cost of green energy. If you look at solar, for example, 6-7 years back, solar was 3 times the cost of conventional fossil energy, probably 12 to 13 rupees unit, whereas 3 to 4 rupees was the cost of fossil energy at that point in time. Today it is reversed. So you can set up green energy, solar particularly, at significantly lower cost. So I think the question is now of transitioning out the old and putting in the new. I think it's now getting to be an economics game, and clearly all new capacity except for base load will be green in one form or the other. I'm still not going into green hydrogen. I think there are probably questions around that. But the timing that the government of India has now said, the longer timing they want, I think gives us a glide path to live. Since I have got this opportunity to talk to a young set of leaders here, the Newtons, I also want to put in context that there are agendas within this. When you talk of green, and there are agendas within this. And there are, for a developing country, there are a whole lot of other ways by which we can bring down the particulate matter in the air. Now, when the discussions in Delhi took place, particularly in the Honorable Supreme Court, and facts started coming out, you heard that there are other contributors. It is not only the pollution that the cars generate or the factories generate, or There is dust from the road. I would add dust from playing fields which are uncovered, dust from construction sites, which of course was talked about. If you add all these, then and you address it, a whole part of what you see as pollution could be cleaned up. But nobody has taken any interest across India. No municipal corporation has taken concrete interest in these areas. I'm sure now it is flagged. We will see, for example, greening of parks, greening of all open spaces, greening of sports fields, roads being swept, if not watered and cleaned every day. So a consciousness to bring down particulate load, along with not burning fossil fuel, I think is a solution. So there's a lot of things that we can do to bring down our load at a very low cost, just by greening ourselves. Greening places which are most polluted and pollute the most, meaning urban centers. And all of you could be champions of this, and all of you should be speaking out about this.
Very right. In fact, we have just gone through a living example. In the lockdown, we used to joke amongst ourselves. We said, once again, I can see stars from the balcony.
Right.
We didn't know where stars were. So I think when the traffic and all the activity stopped, I think all that benefited a lot. Okay. This is Aditi Banawalikar. She's from, again, an integrated MBA batch. Do you see China's crackdown in crypto space an opportunity for India? Especially how young fintech enthusiasts can leverage the growth opportunities. Actually, there are two questions. There's one more, if you will permit me. Shireen Verma, both these young ladies' questions are to do with entrepreneurship. How should entrepreneurs and investors look at startups based on digital currency in an environment of regulatory vacuum currently?
Yeah, I think the answer to that is simple: fraught with risk, because you really do not know what. And one should be very clear: are you talking of digital currency, or are you talking of cryptocurrency, or are you talking of the underlying technology?
Yeah.
And is there a way in which these can be used discreetly? Then you probably the answers will be different. And if it is using the technology you want to start a digital venture, I think the risks probably are contained. Look at it. Though again, I'm not an expert at all. Sometimes what I've read from time to time, the cost of the digital, the blockchain, one needs to probably better understand in terms of a single transaction, how much energy does it take, and so on. I think these need to be factored in before I do this. But as long as the two are separated and there's the business case of blockchain, to me that is lesser of a cost. The first question was on digital currency, and so the first question was what was the question, Vijay?
Oh yeah. So the first question was on China's crackdown in crypto space and opportunity, and does it present an opportunity for young fintech enthusiasts from India?
Yeah, a crackdown to me clearly would mean that they are uncomfortable with something unknown coming into the market and disrupting what to them is a fair growth pace. Probably 5 to 6%. They're happy with it, and while they're planning their growth from 12 trillion to 20 trillion. They don't want these sort of things to come down. Of course, there are other crackdowns happening there, which we will not talk about. In startups, I think will happen in every area, including this area. And I would think that with caution, one should look at, and clearly where there is a regulatory vacuum, do not enter.
Okay. I have one question before I add somebody else's question. Our students, many of them are at crossroads, though they had made up their mind as to what they would like to do. But I think times have changed very dramatically over the last 2 years. Typically, students either like to go for a stability in a job and build a career, or at least 30–40% of them of late are very keen on becoming entrepreneurs. And then there is a very good set. In fact, I'm very pleased with that 25–30% of students are actually now looking at higher studies because they see the opportunity for creating new knowledge with all the disruption that is happening. which out of these three you believe is something which appears more exciting than the others?
Yeah, the middle one, that is entrepreneurship. I would think that the opportunity to for kids to get together, a few of them, and create something or co-create something is enormous. And whichever area you look around, you will find opportunity. Reason being very simple: there are incumbents waiting to be disrupted. Incumbents cannot think and cannot understand today's cost, despite their ability to change. They are driven by the IT manager. They are driven by leadership within the organization who says, whose neck is on the line? As far as young people who are doing a startup, that question doesn't come to their mind because they are not putting their necks on the line. They believe there is a new future and they are going on that path. It's a huge difference in mindset between my neck on the line to, I'm driving a new path. So to me, the choice is very clear. If not, third, which is acquire more knowledge.
Okay. All right. We still have a bunch of questions, but I also know that we are committed to the time that we allocated for this. If you are okay, I can add one or two more,
Please,
and maybe our panelists have a question or two. I'll just open it once again. Everybody has been sending me signals. I'll let the students ask the questions, so which is what I'm doing so far. Anybody on the panel would like to ask questions? Okay. In that case, I'll take one or two more questions which have come from students. This is from a faculty member, Vivek Saxena. He says, what guidelines do we have to help good customers, and what makes a good customer? I don't know where he's coming from, but if you can get it.
No, there is no guideline for good customer. I think an organization is whatever you are putting on into the marketplace, you are providing a service or a good. And I think there are certain obligations that you should provide. I would think if you have to capture it in one phrase, value for money. And it can then have many connotations: quality, reliability, and so on and so forth. Service, after-sales service, ease of use, so on and so forth. So each company will need to put down these things very carefully, and then see whether they match what the customer wants, and then you will have a fit. For example, when we were rolling out ATMs 20 years back, bank people itself would ask me, but which customer will want to use this? So now the question is, you are not prepared to put it out, and you are then running to a conclusion that the customer also doesn't want it. But the moment we rolled it out, we had lines which are so long at every ATM that you put a second ATM, so you'd improve your service. So I think you need to understand what the customer wants and then prepare a construct, and that's what you work against.
So banks are a regulated business. Economy to an extent is I mean, movement of money is regulated in certain form, but movement of digital data is not regulated as much. So do you foresee a possibility of a digital regulator which will work on issues like artificial intelligence solutions, what can be done and what cannot be done, and so on and so forth?
I think it's a very fascinating question. Digital regulator, in fact, in terms of data not moving out, every nation, I think, is now starting to look at it. So at least in the banking sphere, for example, cloud data means cloud in India, cloud not somewhere else. But how do you prevent all other data that you articulated earlier, which is going out and getting used? That I think will be very different. But the regulation will take the form, if it takes the form, and I'm sure it will, what we discussed earlier. That is, if data is accessed, firstly, the customer should be the user, not the customer here, should have the right to say, use my data or not use my data. And if it is to be used, then to say that you will be paid for your data, or it will be shared. You'll be sharing part of this. I think that's the way that's the form it will need to take.
Okay. One more question which has not come up specifically, but it comes up very often. One of the benefits which the economy has received and the upswing that we get, you also alluded to it, is productivity. And productivity is better utilization of resources. Lot of technology getting deployed in a more productive manner, and also a certain number of jobs going away. So right now, job creation for an economy like ours, or for a country like ours, society like ours, is a priority. And job creation is not exactly catching up with the rate at which the economy is growing. Do you have any suggestions for that?
No, I think maybe we had a hiccup for that 1 year, but clearly, if you look at the largest job creating sectors, as I say, one would be infrastructure going forward, because all the things that we have to do to build India over the next 25 years, manufacturing will be a marginal contributor as we go along. The whole lot of it will be services and digital. To me, this is where the jobs will come. And I would think that it will provide a job for everybody in that value chain. And it is, by that I mean somebody, let us say, with just high school education, going on to people with the higher education is going to be an entirely different employment space as it is. I'm not actually negative, or I'm feeling about jobs. Jobs will happen. They'll happen quick time. Because my experience in 2000, 2002, I strongly believe in that the new economy created jobs, and this new economy will create jobs at least at the same pace. That is 4 jobs for every job created or more.
That's wonderful. I think that's on a very, very reassuring, ending on a very reassuring note. I don't think I want to overuse the time that you gave to us. So I would, first of all, thank you for being very patient with questions, and also handling all the questions coming from all angles, right from climate change to job creation to what a good customer means, and so on and so forth. So thank you very much, Mr. Kamath. Look forward to have you on the campus very, very soon. I would now pass you back to Professor Neha Tiwari.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir, for such a wonderful session. Thank you, sir. May I now request the President NIIT University, Professor Rajesh Khanna, to propose the vote of thanks.
Thank you, Professor Tiwari. Thank you, Mr. Kamath, to lead us into this digital world that has been forced upon us, and help us in trying to make sense of it, and most of all, be optimistic about it and a pathway. Of course, things are unknown, and the young generation would find things that we talked about many things, but I'm sure they would find many more ways to be useful and make use of this digital world. So thank you for that. There are many things you talked about. Some of them have struck a chord, some of them were new knowledge. And we as human species and the structures around us responded to the change that was forced upon us. I think that was the key I could make out. We as a society, as a nation, responded to the digital change that was forced upon us. And that was the key, as you said, accept the change and the ability to change. And that was the starting point. And then the whole structure of how this digital world is panning out, and all the symbiotic effect of the device, the data, the user, the length and breadth of the consumer. I think the democratization is a very, very interesting fallout. And you gave examples of that to show us in an illustrative way. So very, very complex things, very unknown issues. Thanks to your lecture, we can now make sense of it. Your very clear endorsement, and this is something very rare. I've seen people with a lot of wisdom, with vantage points, being slightly diplomatic about what to say to a young person. But you're very clear that entrepreneurship and higher education, new knowledge is the way to go. So you are exhorting the young generation, the Newtons, to gear up, to be a part of this digital world. So that to me was very heartening, and my personal thanks to you for laying it out very clearly. So there were no ifs and buts in this. So that's something, I'm very, very thankful to you. And the Newtons look forward to such very clear guidelines. It's very, difficult to follow if the person itself, is here and there and just trying to use words to navigate. So that is one point. And also how there the opportunity lies and a perception of seeing a process. I think that's also very fascinating. So we all see the same word, but as you showed us, this YouTube, which is still, to many families, to many parents, to many nurturers, is a no world, is where the actual world is. And I, as president, have to be a part of this world, have to acknowledge this world, that this is where the real world is. I mean, we inaugurated the digital gaming session a few days back. And I said to my Newtons that this is a world created by you without any adult supervision. And this is your world. This is the first time a generation has created something which has absolutely no input from adults. So we, I think, are on the right path with respect to the climate, with respect to new knowledge, with respect to the mentorship, with respect to have an open mind, the ability, the agility to change, and also to recognize that change is important. Also, the word of caution about the incumbent. Never before the incumbent has been so badly placed, because the tools, the arms are available to everyone. And people with new ideas have the same tools and arms as you had. So, the incumbent. So very, very wise, sayings, a very, interesting, I would say, very useful, and lot of caution and about the incumbent. So while it was exhorting the Newtons, it was a warning to the nurturers to shape up, to be open. And sir, we will listen to you. We have listened to you in the past, and we will act on this. We also believe in this. It's a further endorsement of, what we have been already doing, plus a new perception about the social media. It's coming from you. It's a big endorsement of the new things. So thank you, sir, for that. This was the lecture part, the vote of thanks for the lecture part. Now comes to the process part. This lecture, this institution of annual lecture, as has been put forward by our founder, Rajendra Pawar. It's a very unusual concept. It follows the first lecture. This is the first time I came to know that this is a very, almost a sacred thing. This kind of a line of the first lecture. So it becomes in perpetuity a series of, year starting. You see, this is like a resolution we take. The things will follow in the year. So we'll take this advice, sir. So the process part would not have been possible, even though the technology is now democratic, the gadgets are there, the devices are there, the data is easy, but still a lot has to be done on ground. And the technical team, the content creators, the people who designed the whole thing, the people who have put it in place, a lot of thanks are due to them. It's not easy, even though it is possible, but it's not easy to get something done. And I, as an engineer, is very, very happy and very thankful when something gets done. I think that's still the key, whether it's digital or manufacturing or whatever, things should get done. I think that's where the buck stops. And thankful to the tech team, thankful to the organizing team, and most of all, thanks to the board members, the distinguished guests, the Newtons, and all the invited people. And we had a very interesting, wise session, and all the components of the session, the technology, the people, the message, and the people who listened to, and the questioning. I think everything just fell into place. So thank you, sir, once again. And back to you, Professor Tiwari.
Thank you, sir. Ladies and gentlemen, with this, we come to the end of the session. Thank you all. Have a wonderful time ahead. Stay healthy and stay safe. Have a great day.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Kamath.
Bye.